All right, Kennedy, whenever we are ready.
Awesome. Hi, my name's Kennedy. I'm a liberal arts representative and the chair of academic affairs currently in student government. And we are super excited for you all to be here. This is our 117th Student Government Assembly Interest Series. We're currently the 116th Assembly, so next year will be the 117th. And then Kevin and Adrian, if y'all will introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin. I'm the Speaker of Assembly for the legislative branch, and happy to provide you all some good information to help your campaign, and hopefully you win.
Hi, I'm Adrian. I'm a university-wide representative in student government and the chair of the Ethics and Oversight Committee.
Awesome. So we will get started. This is the intro to student government. That'll be the first thing we talk about. And the QR code there is to the Instagram. Everything you could possibly want to know is going to be on there. We also have our own Instagram for Assembly, but just like streamlined SG information will be through that QR code if you don't already have it, or you can just look up UTSG or UTSG Assembly on Instagram. I'll give it a second. Okay, cool. Kevin, do you want to do this part?
Yeah, all right, so before we get started, like all of the campaign stuff, just for people and folks who like have not been at SG and kind of confused of how we operate, I'm just going to give you like a brief overview of how SG is structured. So we kind of model after real government. We kind of have, we have three branches, and I'll just explain them all in little detail. So first is the judicial branch, and they're the ones that kind of oversees the executive and the legislative branch. They are the ones who kind of provides guidelines when there's any sort of like disagreements between the two branches, or anything that we do or anything that the exec branch does that students may not like. The judicial branch is the arbiters, and they kind of arbitrate for us. And so they have justices and they have clerks. Then there's the executive branch, which is, of course, headed by the president, vice president, and they have a team called the executive board. Those are the directors who kind of manage all of the more administrative duties for them and kind of help and support the president, vice president in their goals. Within that, they have their internal staff, which kind of supports the executive board and the VP and the president. And then we have agencies, and we have, I think, over more than maybe 15 agencies that have different like focus points. So like there's Click the Vote, which does voter outreach. There's Governmental Relations Agency, which deals with like federal, state, and local advocacy, so on and so forth. And then there's the legislative branch. And so the way we have is we have three different tiers. So we have the Speaker of Assembly, which doesn't always have to be like a representative, but generally is. So I'm a U-wide representative, but there's a Speaker of Assembly. There are representatives, which are everyone else, of course, who kind of, are voted in by the entire university, which is U-wide, or various colleges. So there's one for liberal arts, natural sciences, so on and so forth. And within that also, we have our internal staff, which supports the speaker and the assembly, being the legislative director, the parliamentarian, the clerk, and the communications coordinator. And they're the ones who really just support the speaker and support the assembly and uplift the work that we're doing. And then we have the chairs. And so all the or not all, but 6 out of all the representatives will be committee chairs. And they kind of had our 6 committees here. So we have academic affairs, governmental, ethics and oversight, financial affairs, rules and regulations, or rules and procedures, sorry, and student affairs. And so academics deal with more academic focused stuff. Governmental affairs deal with a lot more state, local, federal advocacy. Ethics and oversight deal with our internal structures and making sure people are being held accountable for the rules that we're supposed to follow. Financial affairs is for our budget that we have to pass every year, and special projects and some more smaller things. Rules and regulations deal with our governing documents and our procedures and rules. And student affairs deals with everything that's student related. And so all representatives, if you're sworn in, you'll be serving on one of these committees, which will kind of deal with those topics.
Awesome. And then what is a representative? Adrian, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so basically, like Kennedy said, this slide just covers what a representative does. So as you all know, every representative in student government is elected by the student body. We basically just write, debate, and discuss pieces of legislations and different initiatives that the body wants to tackle. We have weekly meetings every Tuesday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. generally, but they can run a bit longer than that. And then biweekly committee meetings, and that time is scheduled by your committee chair. Additionally, we just have like a really unique opportunity because we have certain connections with administration and other student leaders across campus. So I also sit like on the admissions and registration committee under the faculty council, and that is also an appointed position. So, you know, like I just said, we have different resources that we can utilize in order to create positive, meaningful change across the 40 acres.
Yeah, and we like to emphasize that we encourage everyone to write legislation and to create initiatives. That's part of why you run, because it's a really cool opportunity. But there's all different kinds of representatives. There are representatives that run, get elected because they want the opportunity to vote and debate the legislation rather than write it. And you don't have to have any legislative writing experience. That's something that you'll get over time, and that Kevin has put together a lot of really cool intro stuff to help you with. So that is all stuff that you don't have to know ahead of time. You'll learn. Don't let that like intimidate you when you're running. And then Exec Alliance is the other elected position. I'm guessing that most people here aren't interested in running for Exec Alliance now, but we'll cover it briefly. It's the president and vice president. They run together as an alliance. They're the leaders of the executive branch, like Kevin said earlier. Generally, the president signs the legislation and they work together to implement the legislation. They sit on a bunch of different committees and they advocate for students to administration. It's a heavy time commitment and they do receive a stipend. So that is kind of the overview of Exec Alliance. If you are interested in running for that, we'll have the contact information at the end of this of the president and vice president currently, so that you can reach out to them with more questions, because that you'll want to know more specifics about how that you campaign for an Exec Alliance. Yeah. Are there any questions about any of the positions that we just covered? Questions about responsibilities, anything like that before we get into elections and campaigning? If not, that's totally fine. Okay, cool. This is the QR code to the most important website right now. It is the Campus Elections website. Everything you could possibly need to know is there. When you want to file, you're going to go there. It'll show you how to file and step-by-step walk you through it. It'll give you all the information you need to know as you go through this cycle. So this like slideshow in this series is going to be a really good opportunity for you to find out most of the baseline information and ask us questions. But this website will be great for you to refer back to. And we have screenshots of it later in the PowerPoint. So scan the QR code so you have the website, but it's super helpful. Yeah, this is the first part of it. Do you want to talk about filing, Kevin?
So this website that the QR code was sent earlier will take you to here. And it will this will be the hub for all of your campaign stuff. And when you do the candidate seminar, it will go in greater detail of this page. But of course, the first thing is how to file. That is where you will file because it will have the instructions and all of that. When you're doing your campaign, you'll have the ability to submit complaints. So that's what that button is there. You can view all the complaints that are submitted in the view complaints, and then financial disclosures is where you will see all of your financial disclosures. And so it's important to know here that filing ends on February 6th. So that is this Monday at 12 p.m. After that, you cannot file. So if you are, still on the fence, you have until Monday at 12 to make that decision. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I should add on here, unless you have anything.
The only thing I would say is, like Kevin's saying, you have to file on time. That is the biggest thing right now, is that deadline comes up quick. I mean, Monday is not far away, and noon is, if you oversleep on Monday, you're in trouble. Like, you have to file. And at this point, there's really no benefit of waiting unless you're just unsure. So I would recommend filing as soon as you know what you want to run for now, because you really don't want to miss that deadline. But that's all I have on filing, so we can go forward. Intro to campaigning. This is important stuff. Adrian, will you handle that?
Yeah, so we just wanted to like give you all general tips about creating a platform and what a campaign should look like ultimately. So we first recommend that you just sit down, start brainstorming various issues and I guess platform points that you can run on. So just a couple questions to consider are, what are your issues? Like what motivates you to create change? Why do you want to be an assembly rep? What can you do to create meaningful change for students across campus? And so once you start crafting your platform and start talking to stakeholders on the ground who might know a bit more about this issue than you can start assembling a campaign team. So basically this just consists of you reaching out to maybe your close friends or a couple of your peers who you trust and just asking them like, hey, I'm running for university-wide representative, I'm running for COLA rep, I'm running for this position. Would you be interested in helping me? Just generally choose people who are reliable, responsible, consistent, and people who you trust ultimately. And then be specific when you are asking each individual. Don't just ask ask for general support, right? Like if you are going in asking them to be your campaign manager, make sure that you do that with intention, because you also have to report their name on the financial disclosure, which is due, I believe, the 14th. And then once you have a campaign team and you know what you're going to be running on, you can start campaigning. There are specific rules in the code that state when campaigning can begin. I believe that's generally 2 weeks before election day, but we should all go and double check that. And campaigning can be done in different ways, whether that's creating graphics on social media like I did, or putting posters up around campus, talking to people in classes, sending a message out in a group chat that you're a part of, just generally making a name for yourself and doing that intentional outreach and engagement.
Yeah, and we have those dates that Adrian mentioned later in the thing, so you'll be able to see them specifically, because those rules are really important. And when you saw the complaint thing that's on the website, if you press that, you'll see people will file complaints, because if you are not following the rules, that is something you could get called on, and it could mean that you get disqualified from running. And so the big ones, as far as these 3 things go, is starting campaigning in the campaigning window, which is in the dates we'll talk about later. And when you assemble a campaign team, that typically happens before campaigning starts. So you need to be very careful that when you reach out to someone, you're not already campaigning, you're just asking them to be on your team. So that would mean you don't want to send that text in a group chat. That's like, you wouldn't go to your class group me and say, hey, I'm running for this. Does anyone want to be on my campaign team? Because that can be considered campaigning. So there's like a fine line there. That's why we say reach out individually. That's a good way to avoid getting into that kind of situation. And then when you ask people, you can't say like, I want you to vote for me. That would be campaigning. You can say, I'd love if you would help me on my campaign in making graphics or something like that. That's a really good way to make it specific and intentional, and a way where you won't get called on anything. Yeah, so we'll go forward. Maybe if the slide will switch, there it goes. These are campaigning examples. You can see Adrian and me are on the bottom, the little arrow pointing to both of us. And Kevin is on the right side of the screen. But we all used Instagram really heavily. Next to Adrian's Instagram post, I don't know if you can see my mouse, is this is him tabling. Adrian did a really, really good job of being on Speedway all the time. That's something that we expect to see a little more of this time around, but you don't have to. It's whatever campaign feels best to you and feels most authentically to you is the best way to go. You just want to really get your name out there. And so these Instagrams listed are all accounts that we've created that people used when they were running, and would be a really good point of reference as you start to create graphics for your campaign. Because a point Kevin made in one of our info sessions is that you should really start doing that, or you can start doing that before that like campaigning day. I did not do that, and I regret that decision. Because then as you're campaigning, everything gets really hectic. And if you have no graphics made yet, you get really overwhelmed really quickly. So those are just things to start thinking about, is once you've filed, this is kind of the next big thing. You want to know, what is your strategy going to be? What is your idea? Do you want to make an Instagram? Do you want to sign up to table? Do you want to just do posters? All of those are options. Yeah. So those are our campaigns. Now we're on timeline. So before we move forward, does anyone have questions about campaigning? It seems really intimidating. It's not as bad as it seems. If you're really nervous about it, maybe make a bigger campaign team. If you're not so nervous, you don't really need a campaign team. That's totally up to you too. I think Kevin had 10 people. I think I had 1. It's like, just depends on what you want to do, how much you want to put into it. Yeah, campaigning questions. Cool. Okay. Timeline, really briefly, you can read the dates on the screen. The big ones are going to be that deadline to file and the candidate seminar. Both of those things are Monday. You have to attend both of those things, or do both of those things, file and attend the candidate seminar. Then campaigning begins February 13th. So that would be the first day that you will be allowed to start campaigning. If you campaign before that, you can get in trouble. So do not start telling people to vote for you until February 13th. Financial disclosures, that is if you spend any money. If you print something in the PCL for 10 cents, report that on your financial disclosure. You type in, I use one thing for 10 cents, send that in. It keeps you from getting in trouble. That's another rule you're not going to want to break. I think there's 2 financial disclosures, one on February 13th, and the next one is on the next slide. But those are the really, really big things building up until Election Day. You don't want to miss any of those dates. Candidate statement is February 15th. The candidate statement is really important because that will show up as people are voting. So you want to submit that candidate statement, because if you forget and your opponent remembers, that really shows in voting. Because if you're going to like scroll through this list of names and someone didn't put in the effort to send in a statement, it reflects really negatively. So make sure you make that deadline to submit a candidate statement. It doesn't take long to write out. It's like 3 sentences. So any questions about any of the things on this slide?
What does the candidate seminar entail?
Yeah, so they're going to go over a lot of the things that we're talking about today, but in more detail. And the rules they'll go over pretty specifically. So it's they don't want you to mess up. They don't want you to break the rules. You'll meet the election supervisory board. Those will be the people running the election, and they'll explain all of this to you. But it's important you are there. 1, because it's required. 2, you'll meet the other people that are running in the same race as you, which is really beneficial. And then you'll get this detailed instruction of what the rules and the timeline look like, so that you're less likely to make a mistake throughout your campaign. If that
Okay,
makes sense.
gotcha. Thank
Yeah.
you.
It's typically not super long. So it's something you got to go to. It won't be too bad, I promise. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. This is the second half of the dates. So that February 27th is when our elections will start. They'll go through February 28th. Deadline to submit a complaint. Those are what we've been talking about with rules. So if you notice someone breaking the rules, you can submit a complaint. You would have to submit it by February 28th at midnight. And any complaints against you would have to be submitted by then, which gives the election supervisory board time to review all of them and ensure they ran a fair election. And then March 6th, we'll know who won what races. And that is typically a pretty cool thing. They do announce the results all at once, so you'll see everyone that won all at once, which is kind of cool. Any questions about this? Okay. Those are contact information. Adrian's contact information isn't on here, but I'm sure, I don't want to speak for him, but I think he would be happy to give it to you. So if you have any questions, we can answer them now. If you'd rather ask it privately, you can send one of us a message. Adrian can drop his in the chat. And yeah, I think that's all we have. If you want to share what you're interested in running for, if it's not COLA or U-Wide, we can connect you with someone that might be able to help. No?
Can you all send the information for McCombs?
McCombs.
Yes. Business.
Yes. Kevin, will you send that?
Yes, give me one moment and I can get you an email.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to reach out to people that are running in the specific race you're interested in, just because they do all work a little bit differently. As far as the pool of people that you're appealing to and how competitive the race is going to be.
Okay, this is one of the business reps that you can reach out to.
Amazing. Thank you. Oh, it's Sarika. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Well, if y'all don't have any other, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah. I was just to say that. I was just about to say the same thing. If y'all don't have like, if y'all have any questions about
We
like
have nothing else.
campaigning, yeah. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Yeah. This is your chance to ask them.
No, all right. Well then, y'all are good. Thank you so much for coming out. If y'all, have any questions later, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to answer them.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Y'all have a good one.
Actually, I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
Are there any requirements or past experience that you need in order to run?
Not past experience. There are some requirements as far as like academic standing and things like that. It details it on the website QR code that I showed earlier on the campus elections website.
Yes.
Yeah, when you click how to file, you have to scroll through the list of requirements and ensure you meet all of those.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's nothing like you have to have done this, this, and this before. We don't have any of that, but there are some academic standing requirements.
I think as long as you're past your first, like if you're a freshman, as long as you're past your first semester, which everyone is, you'll be fine. I think that's like the only academic requirement.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
Of course. Okay.
Let me stop the recording.